I'm Jessica Cloud. I'm a certified fundraising executive and consultant. And every single Friday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm on here for half an hour to talk about anything to do with nonprofits, fundraising. I'll have a theme every week that we will talk about. Today, we're going to talk about building fundraising confidence, which is a huge topic if you are on a nonprofit board, if you are an executive director, you're a founder of a nonprofit, or you work in development and fundraising. That fundraising confidence is something that we always have to work on and keep and try to develop and protect. So what I want to say about fundraising confidence is I hear from a lot of folks, like it's very common for folks to say, I could never do that. Like when they hear that I'm a fundraiser. Yes, you could. You could learn how to do this. It is a skill, and developing that confidence and talking with donors and in asking for money comes from a lot of mindset work, and it comes from practicing your ask, from thinking about how you're going to invite the donor in advance and then having a structured set of practices so that when you come to the conversation, you're not winging it, you're not leaving it to chance. You've actually done this a few times, right? So you will come into it with more confidence. So I used to work with a minister because I was a fundraiser for a seminary, and she was very worried that if she practiced the ask too many times, that she would not sound authentic. And I said, actually, you will sound more authentic when you are practiced because you will be calmer when you are delivering that ask. And what I said was, do you practice your sermons? She was an incredible preacher. And she said, of course I practice my sermons. And I said, do your sermons sound inauthentic? And so at that point she got it, right? That practice helps you get what you want to say authentically into your body so that you are calm and your delivery comes across as composed as possible, which reads to everyone else as authentic and organic. So building fundraising confidence, in my opinion, starts with mindset. And a couple of weeks ago, we talked all about mindset. So if you want to learn more about money mindset and how to counter scarcity beliefs in your fundraising, you can check out some of those videos on my profile. The mindset piece is all about uncovering the money beliefs that we are raised with in American society, and maybe even in your particular family, and then retooling those with practices that are validated by neuroscience, like affirmations, visualization techniques, journaling, all of those techniques, plus some other little practices, like let someone buy you a coffee without fighting with them about the bill. Let someone give you a compliment without deflecting it. So those kind of practices can help make you into a better fundraiser with a stronger money mindset. Now, once we've gotten past our money mindset issues and we're actually into the asking portion, how do we develop that fundraising confidence? So we've developed a relationship with the donor. We know that it's time to present a proposal. How do we go into that proposal meeting with a lot of confidence? We're going to, one, have a structured ask, and we're going to build that ask so that we can diagnose the response that the donor gives. What do I mean by that? In my opinion, an ask is built out of a couple of parts. The first part is a dollar amount. It needs to be specific. We can't say, we hope you help us out with a gift this year. And we need to be more like, will you help us out by joining the director circle at $1,000 a year for the next 5 years? Specificity. So the reason that we do that is because if you say no to a gift in the abstract, that is a conversation ender. Where do you go from there? Will you help us out with a gift this year? No, I don't think so. How do you do a rebuttal to that? How do you keep the conversation going and figure out why and how? It's much more difficult, actually. So, but if you say, will you help us out with a gift of $1,000 a year for the next 5 years? Oh, I can't commit to that long a timeline. Okay, great. We don't have to set it up as a pledge. We can just do $1,000 this year. Oh, I can't do $1,000. That's too much. Great. Okay. What about we do 500 and then we'll see how things are at the end of the calendar year. Maybe you can make an additional gift. You can build your rebuttals from there. So if you are actually structuring the ask properly, you will be inviting a response that you can then read and diagnose in order to begin the negotiation phase. So it must be a dollar amount and it must be structured as a question. So you need to have that piece as well, because it is a back and forth. We don't want to listen to someone do a monologue about why we should give. So it needs to be structured where that final sentence invites a response from them. That is structured as a question and it is a specific ask for specific things. So my formula is you have a questioning opener, would you, will you, could you, etc. You have a mission moment in there, so you have something in that sentence that connects it to what the funds are going to support. So you have to join your President's Advisory Council Society or the Dean's Circle, or to help with the building fund, or to assist us in reaching our annual fund goal. It needs that specific dollar amount because that's your starting line for negotiation. And then it needs silence after that. And that's going to feel really weird. And you're going to feel like it's super awkward. And you're going to want to jump in there and you're going to want to say, but we could also change the deadline, or it could go to this program. Don't do that. That undermines your confidence in the perceived eyes of the donor. You need to stand your ground. Ask the question, will you help us out with a $25,000 gift to help us complete our building campaign? It's their turn to talk. You just asked the question. So be quiet and wait for the response from the donor. Because anything you say after you pose that question will not only show that you are not fully confident in what you just delivered, but it will also lead the conversation. It will pull the question in a particular direction that might not be the donor's actual hesitation, if there are any. So you want to give them space to tell you what they need to tell you. Most of the time in a major gift conversation, meaning you've spent time developing this with the donor and you know that this donor that you've built relationship with has capacity to move into whatever a major gift is for your organization. You've spent that time in relationship. You've delivered the ask. Usually it's not going to be a flat out no. It's going to be a mismatch of program. You misread their interest in a particular program. They can't do that particular amount. They need to get to a different level of support. They can't quite do what you asked for. That's normal, actually. If you said, hey, how will you help us out with 50,000? And they say, yeah, absolutely. You probably asked for too little. Like, you kind of want them to come in a little bit lower than what you asked for, because that means that you absolutely maximized what they were able to do in terms of support. So usually it could be financial. It could be timing. It could be that they just paid their kids' college tuition bill and they're feeling a little pinched. It could be the market is a little unstable at the moment and they need time to let that recoup before they make their gift. It could be that they need to consult others. That's a common rebuttal is, hey, I need to talk to my financial advisor. Sometimes they have to talk to their adult children. Sometimes they need to talk to their spouse. And that is very important for you to go back and then record in the database, right? Because that's going to help the next fundraiser or you in a future year be more confident. So you can go ahead and give them a preview and say, would you like for your spouse to join the conversation when we talk about your next gift? This kind of thing, right? So again, could be financial, could be timing, could be need to consult others, and it could be a mismatch of program, what program it's going to support. But if you don't pause after asking that question, you're not going to get a clear read on that. You're not going to get a clear read on what is the donor's concern. So structure your ask properly. That's the first step to having the right amount of fundraising confidence going in, because you are actually using a system for your ask instead of just going in and winging it. So After we have structured our ask, which remember that has a dollar amount, a question, it's structured as a question, a mission moment, and then we are quiet and we let the donor respond. We get an accurate read on how they felt about that invitation to give. Then once we've built the ask the way that we want to build it structurally, we need to practice before we go into those meetings. And this is the step that I think a lot of new fundraisers skip, is they might have a strategy for how they're going to say the ask and putting it together, but they don't quite do the full preparation in terms of getting ready to deliver it. So they think they've got it under control and they go into the meeting and the nerves get to them at that last minute, and you come off looking not confident. You come off looking just a little bit flustered when it comes to the ask. So what you want to do to prevent that is to practice. There's many ways that you can practice the ask. So it really should be a sentence, maybe a paragraph at most. This should be 30 seconds to 90 seconds. That's the actual calling the question of the ask, the invitation itself. So you can practice it a number of different ways. I would start by writing it out. And because there's a lot of research that physically holding the pen and writing on a physical sheet of paper, it gets it into our neural pathways in a different way and increases our ability to memorize and deliver it back more quickly. So begin by writing it out several times, 5, 10, 25 times on paper. Then read that and read it aloud, because that's the next step, right? So we're going to add our voice to the process of practicing that ask. Then do it in front of a mirror. Trust me on this. It's going to allow you to deliver that ask and see your facial expressions. So your face could be betraying the fact that you don't feel as confident. So you're going to be able to evaluate your body language while you are delivering the words that you've just practiced. Then I would take a video of yourself. And again, I think a lot of people are like, I don't want to do that. It's so cringe. That the best is on the other side. It's all practice. You're delivering the ask over and over. And the more that you're able to evaluate your presence when you are delivering that ask is going to be a good thing. So I do recommend filming yourself and watching it back. So write it down, read it aloud, read it while looking at a mirror, video yourself and watch it back. Then also you can record it, do an audio, a little voice memo to yourself. And then I also recommend that you do this with people. So you do a little role play. And I recommend doing the role play with two kinds of folks. One is with a trusted colleague. So someone else in your office that understands a little bit about the organization that you're asking for and about fundraising. And then that way, they're going to be able to give you more technical feedback about how you delivered that ask. Then do it with someone you love. So do it with your son, your daughter, your mom, your dad, your spouse, someone very close to you who can give you the real feedback, right? Like they're going to give you the real feedback about how you are delivering that ask. And again, somewhat mortifying when you're going through it, but you need someone that's going to be 100% honest with you. And then once you've done those role plays, you can begin to also visualize. So visualization is a very powerful practice. And so as long as you can get yourself centered, comfortable, and then just close your eyes and imagine. So if you're going to be delivering this ask in a coffee shop or on a Zoom call, put yourself mentally into that situation and think through delivering the ask perfectly. And that will also reinforce it in your mind, in your head, that this is going to happen in the way that you are envisioning it. So that's a lot of practices. I think that was like 7 or 8 ways for you to practice your ask before you end up in the room with the donor. So if we structure our ask properly, we practice our asking properly, we will be fully prepared when we go into the meeting with the donor. So Let's see. I do have some questions prepared that folks DM'd me about this topic. So let's see what questions we have here. Oh, why do so many good people in the sector struggle so much with asking for money when they clearly care about the mission? So much of this, it's not about caring, right? The reason that we have issues asking for money has to do with all kinds of deeply cultural stuff from being in the United States of America and how we approach money, because we think it's rude to ask for money, that we can't get something for nothing, and we perceive the donor giving as being that they're getting nothing. This is a fallacy, of course. Donors get a lot when they give to organizations that they care about. They get a lot of emotional values-based alignment and all kinds of things from participating in philanthropy. So it is a reciprocal relationship, a two-way street. It's not getting something for nothing. So part of that is how we perceive charity. They care about that mission, but it's how charity is perceived and how receiving is received. And we're a transactional society here in America, right? So what I recommend is to reframe this completely. And we think that the mission is here in the center and fundraising is off to the side as a necessary evil, as a different department from program. That fundraising is, again, just this thing that we must do to keep the lights on and the engine running, but it has very little to do with our mission. We need to take fundraising and bring it right back to the center, because the mission doesn't exist without fundraising. And we need to reframe fundraising as a fully noble endeavor. Fundraising is absolutely the thing that makes philanthropy happen in the United States, because philanthropy is a voluntary activity. No one is saying that you must support this cause or this cause. There's no force involved. So inviting folks to participate in things that are meaningful and them of their own free will and their values saying, yes, I want to support that. That's a beautiful thing. That's a noble thing, that they want to participate in this voluntarily, willingly, in order to produce some societal good. So I propose bringing fundraising back into the center instead of it being like, gosh, I have to do this fundraising thing and I don't want to do the fundraising thing. And this is something that I resent that I have to learn. That's where we need the reframe, right? And of course, the second thing is that fundraising is very vulnerable, right? Even in the best of circumstances, even if we have put our money mindset right and we've done the work to figure out, unearth all of our own money stories around our fundraising, we still fear the rejection, right? Now, I have a unique perspective on this because I spent many years in college phone-a-thon call centers. And boy, do we get told no a lot, because we are doing alumni calls, which are, they're not cold calls because we are calling on behalf of an institution they know, but they are lukewarm, let's say that. So these lukewarm calls, and the callers are trying to build rapport with the prospect in 3 to 5 minutes before they make the ask. That's a really difficult thing to do. It's actually much, much harder than major gift fundraising, where you have many months to develop a relationship with your prospect. And so you do get told no a lot in the phone center. So you do develop a thick skin about that. But a lot of people that don't have that experience of being told no and being like, that's fine, I'm moving on, I'm getting my next yes. When you haven't developed that skill, it's really scary. You think you're going to get told no a lot. But I'm here to tell you that when you have spent the time and you're allowed that time to develop that relationship with your prospective donors, you don't get told no nearly that much. Very rarely will someone that you've spent 6 to 12 months developing a relationship with, very rarely will they tell you outright no. So as we talked about earlier, there's several reasons why they might not say yes immediately, right? So they might need to change the amount. It might be a financial issue. It could be timing. It could be they need to speak to someone else, a spouse, an adult child, a financial advisor. And it could be a mismatch, a misread between what program they wanted to support and what you proposed. So all of those are we can handle those. We can work with that and we can still get the gift. Maybe it's not quite as high a gift as you wanted, or maybe it's not a multi-year pledge, but we can still negotiate from there. So rarely are you going to get a flat out no. So let's put that out of our minds, that we're going to get rejected. Again, if we're reframing fundraising from being a necessary evil off to the side of the mission, which is central, and we bring fundraising back to the center with the mission, that's our first reframe that we have to do in order to really build confidence as a fundraiser. The second is we need to reframe rejection as that's a good thing. It means that you're asking. It means that you're out there doing the thing. So your job, I propose, do not frame your role. If you are in any kind of role, if you're a board member who's asking folks to participate, if you're an executive director, a nonprofit founder, if you're a development person, all of those situations, you want to reframe your role from being, oh, I have to get a yes, I have to get a yes, I have to get a gift. No, that's too much pressure, especially if you're not an experienced fundraiser. Instead, frame your goal as I'm going to present the needs of the organization and make an ask, make an invitation. Your job is accurately presenting the needs of the organization and making an invitation, making the ask. That's all. You're not responsible for the outcome. The donor is responsible for the outcome. And in that way, you can begin almost chasing rejection, right? There's several people here on TikTok have talked about this concept of chasing rejection. So I applied this in my personal life. I am a poet. I'm a published poet. I was terrified to put my poetry out there and submit it. The first time I did that was in 2018. And the more that I just did that, I just did it. I just forced myself to do it, even though I was terrified. And I then got my first acceptance. And then I just kept going. And now it's no big deal for me. I'll submit wherever, to the most prestigious journals and everything in between, because I'm just chasing rejection. The more rejections I get means that the more I am applying, and therefore the more acceptances I will get. So focus on this, the activity of making the invitation, not on the outcome of getting the gift, because that is going to serve you better in the long run, not only for your confidence, but in your results as well. Because the more you ask, the more you're going to get yeses. Because again, in major gift fundraising, very rare to have a full and flat out rejection. So that's what I would say there in terms of building fundraising confidence. So we are almost at the top of the hour. So if you are on here and you have any questions about fundraising, nonprofits, etc., please put them into the chat. I'll be rolling out some highlights from this live on my channel, on my TikTok channel, over the next couple of weeks. This is Real Deal Fundraising. We're here every single week at 12:30 Eastern. This is Fundraising Fix Fridays. I'll always have a theme or a topic for me to yap about, but if you want to come with your questions or DM me questions in advance, or put questions on the other videos on my channel, I will endeavor to answer them here on Friday at 12:30 every Friday. And today we talked about a few different things. One is we talked about how to structure your ask. So we talked about having a clear dollar amount and structuring that ask as a question, and the kind of refusals or negotiation points that might come up after that. They're not really refusals, they're really starting points for further discussion with donors. Then we talked about ways that we could practice our ask. So we want to engage all of our different senses in order to get this ask comfortably in our nervous system so that we can be as confident as possible when we're in front of the donor. So we're going to be writing that ask down, long form with paper and pen. We're going to be saying it out loud. We're going to be looking at ourselves in a mirror while we're saying it. We're going to video ourselves. We're going to do this with a loved one who's going to give us the really intense feedback. That's, why are you doing it that way? You look weird. And then we're also going to do it with a trusted colleague who's going to give us more specific feedback. We're also going to visualize how that meeting is going to go, so that will not only make us more calm, but it helps you mentally rehearse. Olympic athletes do this. They run the event in their head going into when they're actually going to do it physically, and their brains fire in exactly the same way. Then we discussed really a reframe about why folks are not as confident as they should be. And part of that has to do with really bringing fundraising in as part of the central mission of your organization, rather than it being a necessary evil off to the side. And lastly, that we don't need to fear rejection, and we don't need to view our job as getting a gift. We need to view our job as asking for the gift. We need to reframe the job as chasing rejection, presenting the needs of the organization, making the ask, and then you let the chips fall where they may. Because the more volume you do, the more people you ask, the more gifts you're going to get. So don't worry about the gifts. Take away that fear of rejection, and you will get more gifts in the long run.